Hey up and welcome to the Temple of Blair. Apologies if you can hear the fan in the background, it's fucking boiling in this godforsaken country we call the United Kingdom. This is a conversation with Kärtsy Hatakka of the band Waltari. This one's really good, man. I was actually quite intimidated going into this one because the sheer range and volume of Waltari records over the years spans quite a considerable amount, and I wanted to do it justice. Nonetheless, Waltari have two records with Roadrunner Records, Torture and So Fine from the early 90s, and Kärtsy was incredibly honest, articulate and very complimentary and respectful to that time and Roadrunner's impact on the music. So let's jump straight into it. Do yourself a favour, by the way, and check out the Waltari Facebook page for this year, man. It's the 30th anniversary of the debut record Monk Punk, and it's the 35th anniversary of them being a band altogether. Let's jump into it. 1, 2, fuck it up. And normally I do just focus on like the Roadrunner years, but with Waltari, I felt like it's just, there's too fucking much. There's so much history. It's so diverse and it's so engaging that I wanted to spend a bit more time on the band as it's now. So let's start there if that's
right. It's the whole idea of the band more or less developed during these years with Roadrunner, for example. So they were pretty important, thinking about the continuous story of the band, music-wise. That we kind of discovered what we need to show to the rock world and what is need to be done, in the sake of original rock and roll attitude,
That's really interesting. We'll get to that because my questions were like directly at like the difference between the Monk Punk and anyway, we'll get to it. Let's talk. You mentioned an upcoming release and you've been busy the last few weeks. What's going on?
It's not very official yet, but yes, we are kind of having a note to our 35th anniversary, what the band has been in existence, but it's 30th anniversary for our first release, and it's 30th anniversary for our start of our international career. Mm-hmm. So we are more or less celebrating our first album, Monk Punk, which came out 91.
Right. Okay.
So this is like from where our very active story of the band, started really and started to roll from these days. So the first 5 years what we spent in Finland were more or less just like creating our skin and discovering what we are doing and just trying to get some things to do in Finland, which definitely at that time was more than difficult because there was no real metal culture in the beginning when we started, or it was more or less like the Soviet Union still in Finland in the late 80s.
Yeah, there wasn't any Finn troll back then, was there?
There was maybe underground, but nobody could have ever imagined that they could stand up from the underground.
Yeah. So this year all about celebrating the 35th, the 30th, getting out after the pandemic and enjoying
35 as a band and 30 as a recording artist.
Yeah. It's impressive, man. I saw some of the footage of the live stream you did on New Year's Eve, and you've still got it. I'm not saying that just to blow smoke up your ass because you're here, but it's always quite encouraging when you see the older artists still out there doing it and the same ability they did 30 years ago. I think it's good.
That's true.
Yeah. Have you got any dates in for this year then? I think I've seen a couple on your Facebook page. You're going to be able to get out, hopefully.
We had already more than 10 dates in Finland for spring, but for a certain reason, they were again, all of them postponed. Mm-hmm. For example, our record release party for the last year Global Rock in Tavastia Club in Helsinki, which is the most legendary rock club in Finland. And they have postponed our release show for Global Rock album 4 times now.
Okay.
And the fifth date is still in the air for August. So let's see.
Yeah, you'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
So when,
but we have some offers from still some festivals, both from Finland and from abroad.
Oh, okay.
So we are eagerly waiting for whether we can announce them or not, or whether there will be real shows or not. You know, it's all just still a bit messy.
Yeah, even though it feels like we're coming to the end, it is still a little bit up in the air in most regards. But I hope I hope it all ties itself up, and I hope that maybe even if they've deployed some rules or something to have socially distanced gigs or something like that to get people
exactly,
out.
Exactly. That's what I've been wondering. That why on earth, you know, bands couldn't have had any like a distant shows or I don't mean in the internet, but you know, with a distance in within the crowd.
What do you make of the live stream gigs that have come about in the last year? I think they were in existence a little bit prior to that, but now there's like dedicated live stream gig productions, which I think it's all right. It feels like it might replace the live album in some way.
Yeah, we had one live stream gig last summer, but we still feel that it's not the same. You know, YouTube is full of live inserts from various shows and festivals. So still, you know, doing only the show in live stream. I don't know, man. You know, it's of course it's maybe better than nothing if it takes long enough time for a possibility to do any shows. But still, I wouldn't really lean on it, you know, too much, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a production guy, so I get off on watching a live stream gig and trying to figure out how they're maintaining the quality, how they're doing the technical stuff. But you can't beat, say, when you look back at sort of live footage and the mics, the crowd up, you can hear the atmosphere is kind of electric. You can't really beat that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe even from the, you know, the random live acts from YouTube, you can easier get the live vibe because it's been originally a live situation. But once it's not, you know, the cooperation of the audience and the performer is so tight and so close and such an important part of it, the whole thing.
Do you have a favorite live album?
To replace the camera with a crowd, you know, it's not really same. It's still like more like a TV show than a live show.
In speaking to like the joining of the audience and the music, do you have a favorite live album or a live bootleg?
Yeah, there are pretty many good live albums, in fact. From the newer acts, I love very much a Muse live album, which became some years ago. With, for example, in the case of Muse, I see that they have been able to bring the best part of the band into the live act and the live release. And in this way, I think that the live album can be great. And the same. Thinking about the old school stuff, for example, Deep Purple in rock, Deep Purple in Japan, live in Japan. That's one of my all-time favorite live albums, from the same reason that it gives definitely the best aspects from the whole band.
Yeah. I think my favorite. This is sort of a recent revelation. Is Tenacious D live at the AC in Belgium. And I think it's nice. It is. I think it's because it's a great video. It's on YouTube, and I think it's just because Tenacious D very ingrained in Hollywood and big production value. There's Dave Grohl influences and things like that, and it's got this massive backing, and it's a massively commercial enterprise. And then when you go to the gig, it's just two overweight middle-aged men in acoustic guitars, and they still deliver. And I think it's something about that, almost a misdirect, that makes it like super special, and the crowd's obviously into it as well because it's comedy rock, and the songs stand up on their own.
They are very entertaining.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's the one I'd recommend. That's the one.
I love the film. I love the film.
Yeah, underrated the film. Underrated.
Yeah.
I've still got a DVD tucked away somewhere. I do break it out every once in a while after I've had a few drinks.
Yeah.
So speaking about Waltari in general, it's so, as I said, I was trying to focus on the Roadrunner stuff, and then I just found it so fucking compelling, and I kind of like felt it was almost criminal that I hadn't properly heard of you guys prior to this project. And the more I read, it's you're regarded as like avant-garde progressive metal, and I think it's not a fair term because it's too much fucking fun. You know what I mean? It's like you take the experimental stuff, and I don't know if this is by design. I don't know if you've got a load of songs which aren't as fun and don't make the albums or don't make the records. But every time I put on a Waltari album, it is like upbeat, fun, and there's a definite vibe which is consistent throughout, even with the crossover and the experimentation. So I guess the question is, was it the blend of styles and things like that? Was that always like by design to blend styles and just keep the fun stuff?
Yeah, we are originally coming from the Finnish punk scene, and punk, of course, always had an attitude that we don't care, and also having a lot of fun when they're playing, and I think that's kind of starting point for the whole crossover and playing without caring about genres and stuff like this. It's been very conscious choice in the way that when we started as a band, and then we just went one day to the rehearsal room, and we had a feeling that today we want to play something else, that we are tired of playing this same shit, and I think it was our original drummer who told in the first place that, hey, let's just play what we feel, and the naturality of playing, that's a very big part of our policy and our principle of in our band. It's you can't cheat yourself. You must be honest. And for example, in the case like me, I have been interested in music since 5 years old, when it was still 70s. So I have been going through all the genres, from progressive rock to punk and rap and metal and techno, electronic, gothic stuff. It's all very natural in me, all in one package. It doesn't need to be that you need to create a different project for expressing yourself in a different way. Why? Because you can do it all in once. and that's what Led Zeppelin did. That's what Queen did, and Beatles, and all these classic bands with everybody are longing for and still praying for. So I don't see any reason why not to do like this, because it's natural to be open-minded, to me, if you're a rock musician.
It's so cool. It's normally when people talk about a band, they say things like, there's something in there for everyone, but I'd like to just re-engineer that to, no, there's a lot in there for everyone. You just need to find it. And
Queen did that already, and nobody wonders why, because they are Queen. So we can say the same, that we are Waltari. You don't need to be anything else than yourself.
Yeah, totally, man. So Die. Is that the first melding of? I'm just trying to give people a scope here, because we're going to talk about the Roadrunner stuff and what that kind of sounds like. But Die is it's over on another realm of extremity. Was it the first kind of meshing of classical and death metal, or was there anything?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. It was the first thing. The only thing which we were copying a bit at that time was what Celtic Frost did. One of their albums called Into the Pandemonium, where they did some metal riffs with some violins and stuff like this. That was 87 already.
Yeah.
And of course, on the other hand, as I mentioned already, earlier, I have been a fan of Deep Purple when I was a kid, so I got to check out the John Lord's classical pieces and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
So mixing this original fan to being a fan to this kind of stuff and mix it to, for example, the period of Enjoy Morbid Angel, it then in the end wasn't very far out thought to combine, the latest trend of metal and heavy music to classical, So it wasn't any rocket science, I just wanted to try to do the same what John Lord did in 1969.
It takes is the motivation to get the thing going.
Of course, yes.
That's the thing, isn't it? And I think there's probably plenty of ideas such as those kind of mashups, but people just don't get off their ass and do it, and that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, and I at the first step, I had a really big doubt that we are not able to, do it because we have no classical training or anything, we just do everything from our ear. Mm. So at that time, and nowadays, of course, we have learned some of it too, but at that time, the biggest fear was that, well, are we able to really play that? Yeah. But for surprise, because we have done already at that time, we did already our Roadrunner albums, and we toured a lot already in Europe. Mm. So just like without realizing ourselves, we have been becoming pretty tight as a players, and became more so-called pro level,
Sure. It still stands up, even though it was recorded, 1996?
Mm.
There's another anniversary.
Yeah. In fact, it was composed already in 93 after our Torch album, but most of it. But at that time, it was just a far dream in my mind. I didn't have any idea that we would have a chance to really make it. So.
Right. Okay.
But the first seats for the project were already nailed, 93.
Wow.
During a Roadrunner period.
I was gonna ask, were they not interested, or did you not bring it up with them?
No, it was more like that we were already changing the label at the time when we found out that we have a realistic possibility to do that. Mm-hmm. So originally, I very much planned it to be a Roadrunner release because of the metal aspect of the label and stuff like this. So in the end, it became pretty odd to me because it was later released by EMI, which definitely didn't have anything to do with metal music.
Yeah,
but originally it was originally it was planned to be a Roadrunner project.
Wow, missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. On the others, that's just to like demonstrate scope. So we've got a death metal opera, but even on the new album with Skyline, the single that came off of that, it's a more specific rap leaning or rap feature, and it's just delivered really. How do I put this? It's delivered quite sincerely. It's more like rock and rap meld, and rock and rap being put together isn't a new thing, but sometimes it's delivered in kind of an ironic way, as if it's really remarkable that these two styles can work together. But it's kind of presented as a song rather than a mashup, and I'm just trying to demonstrate you've got such a span of different styles which have kind of have incorporated themselves into Waltari's music over the years.
Yeah, it's a trip what started 1991, and it's been developing all the time. So, for example, if I make a song and I don't know how to arrange that, I took one of our older albums and scrolled through the list. Oh, this is the style we still haven't developed so much. So let's take this style and develop in this song. So with that. Our benefit at that point is that we have such a large library of music that we can, get back to any of the ideas we have had in the earlier days and further develop that, you know, with a new album.
It helps with like the live show as well, having a richer back catalogue. You can flow a live set a bit more creatively. But I was going to ask you, as for a Waltari virgin, knowing the span of musical crossovers which you indulge in, what would you recommend as like an entry point Waltari album?
I think the compilations, especially the Decade compilations, Decade 1 and Decade 2, they are the good ways, because they kind of introduce you to the variety of styles, but still plays more like a single songs and more easier tunes without getting very deep into the mud yet. But yeah, the compilations is always the best, because there you can see the variety and I would call it richness more than the confusion.
Your words.
I try to be positive.
Additionally, you composed for video games, didn't you? You did Max Payne 1 and 2.
Yeah, that was my first real solo project. You know, when maybe the one and the only time Waltari really was having a bit longer break after the exhausted 90s. You know, when we all were more or less like a second leg in the in the grave. It was such a hustle, the whole 90s decade. So we need to have a bit longer break, and just by accident, you know, I got a possibility to compose a computer music, which I have been, at that time, I had been dreaming about for many years already. And of course, with the real rock band, it wasn't so possible. So to me, it's more than doing a music to any game, you know. To me, it was more like to fulfill a dream, to create the music to the screen,
into a different medium.
Yeah, not to the rehearsal room. So
yeah, it's weird, because when I was listening to Die, I was thinking there's these days, with the advent of like independent video games, now there's a lot more than there was. There's been a massive explosion, say, the last 15 years in the indie game market. And I was like, this would really suit an indie kind of title somewhere. I think there's like more potent ground for this more than there ever was. And it's interesting how I was looking at it through that lens 25 years after that album comes out, which might not have been even thought of at the time. Maybe it's just my sensibilities about video games. It just felt like there was a good match there, or at least in the style in which it was delivered.
Yeah, you're talking about Max Payne still.
I'm talking about just any game. I was thinking about Die, just the way it sounds now.
To be honest, Die was the reason why they wanted to hire me to compose the Max Payne, because they knew about my capability with orchestra, and they had already idea to do a kind of film noir, kind of old school soundtrack stuff with the orchestra, and because they knew me and they knew my work with the Waltari, with the orchestra, so that was the biggest reason why they wanted to have me there.
That makes so much sense. And it's so weird how, when I was listening to the album and thinking this would be appropriate, that's probably exactly the same thought process they went through.
Yeah. and it's very strange, because I don't really consider myself as any kind of classical composer, you know. I'm just a composer who wants to do anything, but it's, of course, it's a big richness, you know, having had the possibility to have this experience with the orchestras, because of course it blows your head. It gives you such a new world of composing. Totally.
Yeah.
Of course.
I keep trying to get into some classical music, but I find it so difficult. It's so fucking difficult. I was I remember studying it a little bit at school, and even then it was sort of presented, you know, in like a weird tunnel visioned way. It's like this, we're going to do a waltz, therefore you got to listen to 3 waltzes, and then that was more accessible. But when I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to listen to the Brandenburg concerto, it's just like, this is going in one ear and out the other. It's not quite touching on here.
Yeah, you know, of course, we had orchestrators there who wrote the notes, you know, because I can't write any notes. I just record my orchestral parts with synthesizers, and then I pass it on to the orchestrator, who made the score out of that. So,
wow.
Of course, this guy's part has been also very, very important in this project. You know, with the Max Payne, we did first time use the plugins, orchestra plugins, which started to be kind of developed already in the early 2000s. And so we didn't use any real orchestra in the computer game, and of course that wouldn't suit there, because computer game is computer game. You have to make a music with computers.
Yeah, I have to make the aesthetic match up somehow.
The cello player of Apocalyptica was playing some solo cello there, and stuff like this. But still, you know, we 90% was just like a programmed.
It's impressive music. How you're working with the conductor of the orchestra, the person who wrote the music for Die was, you recorded it on synth and then it was passed over, because this is in the years before Ableton, so you couldn't just send him a project file for him to transfer. No, you had to do it by ear.
I give the guy a C cassette. And I just follow the procedure from beside that the notes are a bit like I played them.
Yeah.
We went through the score and he showed me how it goes, and we went through the melodies, and I just double checked that everything is like I wrote. But you know, of course, there was no file sending at the time. No. It was far more exciting than that.
So I guess I'll round off this bit by anyone who's listening, go for the Decades albums, the 2 Decades albums, and go for
yeah, that's a good start. And of course, Spotify has almost all of our albums. The one is still missing due to the contractual reasons, but 90% of our stuff is there. So of course, the Spotify is easy to scroll. You know, you scroll through the albums, and but I prefer the last one, for example, very much, because it's with the last 2 albums we have had an aim kind of to summarize almost everything we have been dealing with and experimental with, and somehow, you know, the last 2 albums, there are some small orchestra pieces, and then some very poppy stuff, some electronics, and then just like a straight on guitar oriented music too. So the Global Rock is, in that way, is pretty good album. But you know, I'm the artist. I always think that the last album is the best anyway, and the most interesting.
All of it. This is the thing. This is the point I'm trying to hit home with everyone. It's all super accessible. So even if, you know, with the ebbs and flows with certain bands, like you might not like the Beatles, like Indian influences, and you might avoid those albums. But
if you're British, you must.
Yeah,
I love it.
But my point is though, it's there's always hooks. It's always fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of the way it goes, there's something, a lot even for everyone. And I think that's the point I want to hit home with. That's the reflections I've had over the last few days.
And to me, you know, the grandfather of all the crossover albums definitely is Beatles' White Double album, because it was a kind of music which I first fell in love with, you know, when I was a very, very young boy. So... And that was the word I kind of learned, that, hey, this is the way the rock bands are working, you know, that they do, you know, whatever they feel. And so it's not any strange that you mentioned Beatles, because, of course, they have been the first real crossover band with doing almost everything. And all the classic bands, more or less, are imitating them, you know, if you think of the last 50, place
50 years.
Yeah.
All right, let's dig into some of the Roadrunner stuff, because this is it's a point of pure intrigue on my part because
we'll get into it. Before going to that, I finished the answer to your first question. And yes, we are doing something for our anniversary, but you will hear a bit later.
I assumed you were going to disclose. That's fine.
And another thing you were talking about having fun, that's a key word to this project, what we are doing.
Cool.
It's not very serious one this time.
Watch this space, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so when we talk about Roadrunner, you were signed to Roadrunner after Monk Punk. How did that come about? Because they had, at this time, they had the offices in the UK, the US. I think they had one in Germany and France at this point, and Amsterdam. But they didn't have one in Finland, I don't think. Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah. We kind of started the invasion with younger metal bands. We started the invasion from bands to travel from Finland to Germany in the early 90s. And I think we kind of more or less started the whole movement because we were, as a band at the time, we were in the situation that we had to move out from Finland or nothing will happen. So, and there started to be some echoes from some small independent bands going to visit Berlin and stuff like this. So we kind of started to get keen on it. And finally, when we were still having our daily work, we spent like 6 months wages and went to Berlin for a few months. And there we met the Roadrunner. We, of course, wanted to be signed there internationally, with at that time sounded just like an impossible task for any Finnish band. Mm-hmm. But we went to Berlin and we met some labels. Roadrunner, in fact, wasn't the only one. We all also negotiated with Noise Records, which was my favorite metal label at that time, because they had a Celtic Frost and Voivod and all this interesting avant-garde metal stuff, which I personally always did love. Mm-hmm. But Roadrunner gave us a better contract, so we took a grip of that. In fact, more or less, only one which I personally knew about Roadrunner at the time was the first albums of Creator, and then of course Sepultura, which we all enjoyed a lot at that time.
Yeah. You're the first person in this. I've done about 60, 70 hours of interviews. You're the first person to say, yeah, Roadrunner had the better deal.
Oh, really? Okay, you can then imagine how bad was the deal from Noise. Of course, the deal was crap, but compared to our life before in Finland, this felt like a heaven to us. But of course, there was no know-how about making international deals in Finland at that time. So we made a lot of business-wise mistakes with it. But who cares? We wanted to get away from Finland, away or another, and they knew that. Then they knew that we won. So there was not really much alternative then. Take it or leave it.
Do you remember who it was who signed you? Who is the A&R representative?
In fact, it was a new girl called Jana Possel who discovered us. And it was a pure accident. We were having, in fact, our first album, Monk Punk 91, had a minor distribution in Germany at the time through Semaphores, a small company called Angry Fish Music. Okay. Michael Bullgreen was run the label, and he had connected to Semaphore distribution somehow. So we got the Europe-wide distribution already for our Monk Punk album. So that was the reason why we decided to go to Germany and check out how far our wings can carry. So, but for our big surprise, when we started to play the club shows as a very anonymous band, we started to get offers from a German labels and a metal label. So it was kind of full of the accidents. And in fact, our first gig in Berlin ever, we played in a Berlin Independence Days happening, which was a bit like popcom for more indie level bands.
Right. Okay.
And we played one of the evenings there in Ecstasy Club in Berlin, and then John Possel, who was about to go start as a worker of Roadrunner next Monday, he went there and just by accident and saw the band, and he said, "Hey, this band I want to sign. This will be my first job in Roadrunner, that I will sign this band to Roadrunner." And so China Possel is the guy who we all need to thank. Without her, we wouldn't talk here. Definitely no.
What's she doing now? Do you know? Did you keep in touch?
She gave up with the business, I think, somewhere on the way. I talked with her maybe 10 years ago or something. Maybe it was due to some business information regarding a Roadrunner album, so something like that. I'm not sure, but then I understood that she has changed to the different business away from music.
It happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah, often.
So did you have any reservation? Presumably you didn't, because you were playing kind of avant-garde metal, but with the reputation that Roadrunner did have, which was they are starting to do thrash, they're starting to do death, and they are very much in that world. Did you have any reservations at all, or were you just thinking this is the vehicle we think that can carry Waltari and give it the treatment?
This is a vehicle, and we were all a big metal lovers at the time. I was a big metalhead at the time, so it was, of course, it was the best possible, because we already understood that we can't, no one can put us to the certain category. So we kind of find out that for some strange reason the metal audience was the ones who really started to like us and take us to their liking. So it was kind of natural choice to choose a metal label, because it was a hot new trend at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't such an old horse like it started to be nowadays, but it was very fresh and trendy style in all ways, and nobody had idea to where the whole genre at that time will go. So I think the reason why they signed us was that they wanted to bring or to get the kind of modern, to create a modern metal, which then later turned to new metal or metalcore or stuff like this. So this was maybe the first seeds, and I kind of respect Roadrunner from being a kind of long distance watchers with this, that they wanted to, they had an idea that metal will be transformed to somewhere, but nobody didn't know where. So maybe that was the time when they thought it was interesting to take us and see. Still, we were the long hair guys, and not looking like a Rick Astley or something like that. So we were still rockers and we were metal guys, but of course, to make the version from Madonna Vogue at that time was pretty pretty far out. But it did work, because that was the first song which created some radio playing in Europe from us.
I completely agree with your assessment of where Roadrunner was and what they were trying to do, because in Monk Punk there is a certain like an alternative angle to it, obviously, by the nature of which it was written and performed. But the label at the time was like, okay, we are in death and thrash, but we are looking forward to like branching out into like more alternative ways of doing things. So I can see why they would have gone, oh, Waltari is like a potent.
And if you can think that we were kind of the ones which was a direction to new metal, then, for example, Type O Negative, which they signed at the same time, was then a pioneer band of a goth metal style. So I must say that the Roadrunner did excellent work at that time with finding bands and creating a new genre, subgenres for metal.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So when let's get into what you were alluding to earlier. So we have Monk Punk, and then the Roadrunner years start to help develop the direction that Waltari would go, and start becoming a little bit more free. So can you just explore a little bit about that, of how you just decided, fuck it, let's just play what we want to play, let's not put ourselves into any boxes?
Yeah, we had a kind of principle when we moved to Berlin from Helsinki that we're gonna make this, in one condition, that we're not gonna sell our souls. And maybe after becoming a artist of Roadrunner, we can't maybe a bit even thought about this principle that we need to stay as we are, that we can't give our small finger to the devil, like we say in Finnish. That we had a kind of mission in our minds, that we must bring this idea to the rock world and nothing else will do.
Did that surprise them in any way? So when you were composing and recording Torture, were they surprised that it was a little bit more diverse and a little bit more out there? Or were they like, yeah, crack on, boys, do what you got to do?
Not at all. This was a Torture album, was exactly what they expected and wanted, and of course, still listening about our back catalog, I think that Torture is still one of the most straight edge albums of our career. And of course it has its diversory ideas, but the sound world is pretty straightforward, and of course, due to the fact that the budgets were still so small that there was no possibilities to make any big sound changes during the mixing process. But they were very happy about the album. They were very happy about, definitely, and after that we started lots of live shows and touring after that. So they really were into the album.
Cool. Who was it at the office at the time? Was it Henk?
Henk Hacker, of course. Henk was always there. The others came and went, but Henk was always there. The Case Vessels we didn't really see except few times, but because he was the owner of the company, right?
Yes, he would typically, his time would be spent between Amsterdam and New York, especially in the early 90s.
Yeah. So that's why we called him, of course, the father figure of the company, because he was the owner. But Henk was the guy who was always there, and of course, at our time, it was Jana Posel too.
Right. Okay. Did he have dealings with Stefan Costa?
Yeah, Stefan came a bit later. He came from the jazz firm or something.
He came from a jazz label.
Yeah, jazz label. Yeah.
Then he'd go down to the Amsterdam office, and then he'd go to New York.
Yeah.
And he'd be with the company until about the early 2000s.
Stefan then had a quite big touch to our So Fine album, and I think they gave him kind of job to watch out for that album.
Right. Okay. So he was the caretaker at that time.
Yeah, caretaker. Torture we did very fast, after the signing, and they heard only few songs beforehand. But with So Fine album, they wanted to hear the whole material beforehand. And that, of course, created a big, not big maybe, but small kind of
friction.
Yeah. That we had a kind of different idea how the next album should be, and that's why I personally think that the So Fine wasn't so good at the Torture.
Right. Okay. What was it they were trying to direct?
They didn't know. that was the problem. They wanted to direct to us to somewhere, but they didn't really know to where, because it was impossible task. Nobody can direct us really. It all must happen naturally, otherwise it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But we for So Fun album we demoed I think more than 30 songs,
Right.
at least 25, 30, a lot more stuff that is including the album. And then because the guys wanted to hear the whole material, that was a kind of mess, start to decide what songs will be there and which not, because there was such a lot diversity, much more bigger diversity with so-fi material than torture material.
I guess that was made it better for them though, because they having such a volume of product, then they could exercise their A&R function and try and decide which is the most applicable to the markets or whatever.
And I kind of discovered that Stefan Köster then tried to be, the mid guy, between the band here and then the Henk and the label here. So Stefan tried to crisscross between the both parties. So from my taste, it got a bit messy with that album. Torture was very simple to do and easy to do, but So Fine it became a bit more chaotic. The process.
Yeah,
the album making process.
No, I think it still sounds good though, and it's So Fine's obviously like a big staple live, and well, from what I've seen.
Yeah. The big surprise, of course, for the metal rockers, was that they decided to have a So Fine song for the single song, because the band was definitely thinking about it as a very experimental piece in the whole structure. So it was a very big surprise that the metal label wanted to have a So Fine as a single, because we were not even sure whether they want to have it on the album, because it was so different from everything else.
But at the time, Roadrunner have got like dance imprints. There's one in the UK called Lafayette. I don't know. Oh, I think the one in Europe was Mocam Records, I think, and there was one in the States as well. So I guess maybe they were tapping into the potential of, there's some Euro trance things, like aesthetics here. There's some electronic aesthetics here.
And Prodigy was coming.
Yeah,
and all this Nine Inch Nails. So it was very, very big, important period, of course, with the electronic stuff. But of course, later on, I understand that, because of that was the only song which was so electronic, and then the other stuff was pure rock music in a way. At least the instrumentation was rock, so it was pretty difficult to market.
Yeah. Well, how was the relationship just on the day to day? Did they keep you busy? Did they keep you on the road?
Yes, for sure. We are doing it all the time. If you ask me, I've been a full-time musician, for 30 years.
Wow.
So no time for anything else yet.
Yeah.
Of course, I these days I work more from the freelancer level, so I can do whatever, and if people hire me to something, of course I'm in, But of course, Waltari is still like the backbone of all my doings. That's the kind of a key project of all I'm doing at the moment. But I do a lot of side project solo, and also for the other people with the other artists, and even some production work. But only music. And thanks to these lively years in the early 90s, that they are still giving that groundwork to work on with.
Did you get US distribution when you were with Roadrunner, or did they keep it within Europe?
Who was the Monty?
Monty Connor was the
Monty Connor was to see our show in London with the So Fine album, but it was very short. It was like a 30-45 minutes, and we just couldn't be able to find the right set list for him, really, because we kind of understood the business problem as it that if we play a pure metal set to Monty and then he listens to the album, no, this is not as metal as they played.
Yeah.
played on the gig. So we just, and the venue itself wasn't any special what we played there at the time. So it wasn't the best evening. If it could be the best evening, you know, in Cologne or somewhere, Hamburg in Germany, I think maybe Montes could have changed his mind. But after seeing that show, you know, he thought that no, this is not for America.
It's interesting. It's the first time I've seen someone when they're having to make a decision about an artist breaking out of a particular territory. It's almost like you were. It's almost like you were going to get signed again. You have to impress the A&R guy from that territory. I found that
exactly, and we felt a bit strange about that because we have been, you know, doing pretty good success in Europe already for some time. So it felt like a schoolboy, you know, why we need to go and try to prove himself something, you know, which we've been doing already for some years here. So summa summarum, it was a pretty odd situation when he came to watch us, you know.
I guess maybe that's how Case likes to run his business. Maybe he had like all those territories competing in a way to keep everything fresh. And that's why practice was there, maybe.
And of course, in Monty hands, you know, there was the most successful acts from Roadrunner. So I think his position in the label was maybe the biggest. So
yeah.
But from my, you know, point of view, you know, he of course should have give us a chance, because then after that we decided to go more into metal anyway. After so fun, so next few albums were far more metal than that. So he should have given us a chance, because then, you know, the following year they became Korn and stuff like this. Then in America,
yeah, and Atmosphere came out on Big Bang. It was.
Yeah,
it was the melding was a bit more refined. I don't how in the canon of Waltari, Atmosphere is the song I see most like in live gigs and what's selected for like the live Wacken shows and stuff, like, you know, when they do like 15-minute snippets and things like that. So yeah, it is interesting that Roadrunner fell off around that era. How did
exactly because I think that would have been you know, very suitable album to them, their catalog, and and again we started to record Big Bang album for Roadrunner still, but for some reasons they didn't like the material.
All right, so that I was about to ask, how did the relationship end? But I guess it was
they didn't like the material. What the hell? I think this is the strongest material we have ever made, and so we didn't have any other chance than to go to another label, because they had a very strange ideas about changing the vibes of the song somewhere totally different, which was like nonsense to us and totally craziness. So this is, we have decided that we must follow our heart and our intuition, and this was we had to do. So we had to move on. We would have liked to continue with Roadrunner, but music-wise, it wasn't just possible, and we were sure that we had ruined everything if we had followed their so-called instructions for the material. That wouldn't be wise at all.
Wow. So was it a matter of leave the label or change the songs? Was that
exactly? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Usually they just sort of drop a band and just go, we're not feeling it. Off you go. We wish you well. But I guess at least it's not even at least they tried. I think you did the right thing anyway.
Yeah, EMI Germany. In fact, there was some money involved that EMI Germany bought us from Roadrunner. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was a kind of big trade at that time. So.
As if I never knew that. That's really interesting. You hear a little bit about that sometimes, but never read it in relation to Waltari. Who was it? Who was it still Stefan who was the go-between at that point, who was telling you the label's not feeling these records or this record?
And Henk, and Henk too.
Yeah,
Henk wrote me a list about the demos of the Big Bang, how we should rearrange the songs. And we read the list, and we were like, oh god. That he wanted us to turn into boy band or something. I'm like, no way.
Fair enough. He had his fingerprints on everything then.
Yeah, I think I have it somewhere still.
Hey,
it was such a funny piece of paper.
So looking back, of the time with Roadrunner, would you have done everything different? Because everything worked out in the end, if you ask me, mate. Big Bang was a big hit, and you've gone from strength to strength since then. I mean, it's a shame that Die did not end up.
Yeah, because that was also meant to be a Roadrunner album. Yeah. And I think both Big Bang and Die would have been very good Roadrunner albums.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you reflect on that time, do you have any regrets? Would you do anything differently with your time with Roadrunner, or does it all play out as it should have done?
I think it was all connected to this small mess with the So Fine album. I think not necessarily with the Big Bang, but I think with So Fine album, I would have liked to do maybe think a bit more differently if I would have possibility to do it now, because it was we were so self-assured at that time, and we wanted to put up the real crossover symphony with So Fine album, that we could have continued a bit more straight edge style, a bit more longer at the time to establish our position in the Roadrunner's eyes. So maybe it was that we think maybe too how should I say, too difficult with a So Fine album, or we could have made another version from Torture, but more in the way of Big Bang, to my taste, maybe.
Yeah, but things, they play out as they're meant to play out.
Yeah, and it was thinking about our career after that. It's the So Fine has been a very important album, though.
Yeah,
it has been commercially one of our biggest successes in the European, and the So Fine song was a kind of minor hit in various countries in Europe. So
yeah.
So thinking about our career, then it has been pretty important album, just like that. But if you ask about the relationship with Roadrunner and the continuity with them, we should have maybe do a bit more different solutions.
Yeah.
Music-wise, already with the So Fine album,
yeah. It would have been good to see it, but hey, it is what. Are there any stories or anecdotes from those days which I might have missed? You seem full.
A lot, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe the most funniest is when we played in Bonn. I think it was in Bonn. There was a festival in Bonn just when the So Fine album was about to be released, and our tour manager was Thomas Moravec, who has been the tour management boss of Rammstein since the first album.
Wow.
And Thomas was at that time our tour management, and at the evening when we play in Bonn, there was a therapy playing, and we were playing, and then some other various, maybe mostly German act, but it was a kind of big in hall festival.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the same evening, we got to know that the So Fine song was climb up #1 in Holland.
Wow, great!
And to having a tequila bottle there in our backstage, that wasn't a good combination of that with that news. So we also with Thomas, our tour manager, we all ended the bottle, and then we created some stupid hustle both in the backstage and on stage when therapy was playing. So Thomas got stabbed from his work after that, and we had like a two weeks break with the touring, and we didn't know what happened. We went back to Finland, and we were waiting what will happen next. So and Scorpio, who was our booking agent at the time, they got a new replacement for Thomas then, and in 2 weeks, and then the tour continued. But that was a hard evening, and and we were so young that we could have acted this situation a bit more wise way. But it was the first time we saw that we were number one in somewhere, so it was a big moment. So who cared about therapy at that moment?
Did you say Thomas got stabbed or stopped?
Yeah, quit, I mean.
Oh, thank God.
He was getting, no, not stabbed. Sorry, my English. I've been too long here now, without any tour traveling. Sorry, mate. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I was just thinking, shit, man. Poor Thomas.
Yeah. He got quit. and
yeah.
So we had to find another one. So it was, Thomas was kind of extra person in our band. So it was also a kind of stupid situation. But shit happens,
Yeah, totally.
This is rock and roll. Especially in 90s, it was still rock and roll.
Yeah. Well, all right, mate. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your insight there. It looks like you had you're very articulate, and you've clearly got a really good memory. So it was good to sort of dissect the
lots
of how.
Yeah, lots of good stories in these 2 years with Roadrunner, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, man, if you do remember it, just give me a shout. We can do a 5-minute one where you tell us another one. But thank you very much. I'm going to let you get back on with your day. All the best.
Thank you, Jim.
Have a good one.